Alright, so got the bump stop here. There's no instruction in the Megan kit on where to cut this, so I just kind of went by other suspension applications and used them as a guideline. Basically, it's an 1.5 inch drop, so I take roughly an 1.5 inch off of the bump stop. The bump stop is what sits in here underneath the sleeve, right? So that you don't have a hard bottom out. But if you leave the bump stop too long, you're going to have a thud often on the bump stop. So you want to cut it so that it travels far enough for the stroke of the spring, but protects you from having that hard clunk bottom out when it bottoms out, if you go over like a high hard bump. So I'm going to cut it right here. Again, I'm going to try it, see how it is, see if my guess is right. But again, I'm going by what I've seen other videos do with similar suspension drops of the 1.5 inch. Alright, so I'm just about to tighten this. Because of the height, you don't have to load the spring with a spring compression kit. I didn't need to use mine for this because the RS spring rate's not that high anyways. So I just put my weight on it and took it off with my 19mm socket. But if you are not familiar, you can use a clamp kit. I will put out all the tools that you would need to do it smoothly in the end. But yeah, I didn't use the clamp kit for it, the spring compression kit. I just did it by hand. But that's what it looks like now. It sits nice and clean, and I'm just about to tighten it with my socket. Alright, so the bolt's in now. This is the assembly all together. Just remember, put the brake line back in. I'm going to put it back in the car. Just to show you where you're working with. When you put it back up in the car, you need to slide up in between here. There's 3 slots. And best thing to do is to push it up, get the studs in for the strut hat, and hand tighten the bolts first, or nuts, so that you can line up the inside part under the car, because this one can be a little tricky. So push it up in there first, get it to put it at an angle so that the thread catches the frame inside, and then inside go and hand tighten the nuts, and then you can slide it over here, the bottom of the strut over here, slide your 2 19mm bolts in, put your brake line back in the bracket, and the side is done. Alright, I'm going to show you a trick. See, this top bolt is hard to line up because now that the strut has gone in and it's sitting shorter, the angle's a bit off. You gotta, because your camber is a little different. So I use my jack under the spindle and I just jack it up. Alright? And you do back and forth until the bolt lines up. You jack it up, it'll go out a bit, and then you push it in at the top of the spindle, which is right here. The same thing, you go up, do this, see what I'm doing? I'm jacking it up, and see what's happening here? Look at this. See? And it's going, 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 and now it lines up. Right? And that's how you get it to line up. Boom, in, and you can just put the bolt back in. Alright, so see now that I have it? Okay, put the bolt in here. Oh. Okay, and it just goes in, and it goes through, like that. Alright, it's back together. See, the bolts are in. The brake clip is back on, as you can see back here. Alright, it's done. This is the drop. Looking pretty cool. Nice height. I suspect the rear is going to drop a bit more, so I might have to put lifters on it. But this is pretty much stance. This is the continue.